Hey everyone, Arc Trading here. Welcome back to the channel. Hope everyone's enjoying their weekend so far. Thought I'd push this out before the Super Bowl starts. So kind of going to dive into this previous week. Went 8 for 11 on the scalping model. And just going to kind of show pretty much every trade I did take regarding the scalping model. So I'm going to start off on Monday. I just have this weird luck where my first trade of the week is typically a red trade. So I even decided to go half risk on this one. And just based on the setup too, I did go half risk on this. But just to kind of show. So kind of just waited about like the first 30 minutes. And then we did get this 15-second setup right over here. We did have this, there's a bearish 1 minute fair value gap. So I was kind of waiting for that one to inverse, even though we had this scalp right here. This was pushing into a bearish M1. So as soon as this inverse right here, we did have a break of structure on the 15 seconds. Fair value gap, no equal lows. And we hit that golden pocket and this went straight for my stop loss, which was at 10. Even though if you put it at 12, it would have hit your stop anyways. But kind of my thought process, this was, I would say, A minus, B plus setup. We did have an inversion, but it was against structure, since structure was pretty bearish for the day. But we did have these equal highs up here, so I figured if it's going to run, it's definitely going to go for those equal highs. And we did have an inversion over here, even though we did tap into a 1 minute. There's a 1 minute breaker block over here. Figured why not give it a stab. So started off red on Monday. Now, I did go 2 for 3 on Monday, so took that first loss, which was half risk anyways. And then at around like 11:20, we did have this external side taken over here, this buy side. So I figured we were going to retrace a little bit down. We did have a BPR over here, so we had a 1 minute bullish fair value gap inverse and a bearish open up at the same time. So there was this 30-second scalp over here, so we had your break of structure, okay, no equal highs either. Break of structure right there, fair value gap, entry was right there. This just went for a TP1 and then break even over there, so a tiny win on that one. And then moving on to the third trade, this is actually a beautiful setup. I love these setups where you have an AMD. So you have your accumulation over here, manipulation and distribution to the opposite side. As you can see, this was definitely clear on the 30-second, and I was already just waiting for a setup to come out of this. So we have your AMD. There was a 1 minute bearish fair value gap here that inversed, so waited for that inversion to close. And then we did have a break of structure right here on the 30 seconds and on the 15 seconds as well. Pretty much the entry was in the same spot because it did hit that fair value gap in the second candle on the 15 and the first candle on the 30 seconds. So this I actually took, but I didn't realize that I was on sim. So that was a little bit heartbreaking because this did run up for 18 points, which is your full TP. And we did have these equal highs up here. So even though I missed that one, there was a setup that came out of it, and these equal highs were still definitely relevant to hit. So because I simmed that, I did see this right here on the 15 seconds. This one I actually took because I switched over back to my PAs. So you have your break of structure here, still bullish on the movement. Fair value gap, hit that first candle, and this went straight for the 12 points right here. So TP2 break even, and then came back down and of course break even over here. I got, I think, close to 18 points. Yeah, 7.25 points. But that's where I finished green on the day. So that was Monday, February 5th. So moving on to Tuesday, February 6th. Right out of open, we just started bleeding through the whole day. No clean setups coming out of it. And then once that kind of stopped, it just started ranging in this action over here, which typically is not going to be favorable. You have this range action and then dump again and then ranging again. So kind of waited it out. A little bit frustrating, but I figured if AM is going to be like that, PM will set up a little bit better typically, and that's exactly what happened. So Tuesday I did go 1 for 1 over here. I would even say this was the cleanest setup, but it was like I've ever seen, but it was definitely the cleanest setup of the day that just caught my eye. So we have it right here on the 30 seconds. So we have this 1 minute bullish fair value gap that actually inversed. So we got an inversion over here. Okay. Even though we do have this open fair value gap, we did create an inversion, so we could deem this as a breakaway. And then you have your breaker structure right here. Breaker structure. Okay, you got tagged in on the second candle. Now this, I only went for 6 points. Just based on today's action, the fact that we are ranging, you're not going to get much follow through. And I'm glad I did only go for 6 points. Because it wouldn't have hit 12 anyways. So kind of used my best judgment, hit 6 points, got a winner out of it, and I was just done for the day after that. Now moving on to Wednesday. Wednesday was actually my first red day in about 2 weeks. So not bad, you know. It's going to happen. I wasn't too happy with my execution for the day, but I went 1 for 2 on Wednesday. So kind of just going to show that setup over here. We did have this CISD on the 1 minute, so change in state of delivery. So I figured we were going to push up to these highs over here. And we did have this 1 minute bullish fair value gap that we priced into. Did set up a 15-second breaker structure right over here. And then we have the fair value gap with the golden pocket. No equal lows, even though we have this here, but these equal lows, I wouldn't put too much weight on. Reason being is we did price into a 1 minute and push out of it. If this 1 minute fair value gap was not here, I would not take this. But the fact that we priced into it and put those equal lows, I'll be a little bit more okay with taking it. Even though it didn't work out, you know, it didn't just go for those equal lows and push back up. It went all the way down to this sell side over here. So you have your 1 minute fair value gap priced into 15-second breaker structure. And this, I think, only ran for like 3.25 points. I did like this initial move. As soon as I got entry, we created this wick. I figured, you know, buy side was going to be over here at this high right there. And, you know, it just dumped straight after that. So took a loss on that one. Now moving on to the second trade for Wednesday, it was around actually 11:30, and we had this 1 minute bullish fair value gap that inversed and did create a 1 minute bearish fair value gap. So you kind of have like a BPR over there. And even though we have these equal highs up here, whenever we create an inversion and also a bearish fair value gap, like I said, I'm okay with leaving those equal highs over there, especially when these equal lows, which is an obvious sell side, had not been taken. So after that, we did have a breaker structure on the 15 seconds over here. Fair value gap, golden pocket. You would have entered on the second candle. Now, if these equal lows were taken prior to this move, I would not take it. It's just for me, you could. It was kind of obvious that sell side was going to be taken right over here. So got in there. It did go a little bit more than I expected. I figured, you know, I would get at least TP1 out of this, but this actually went for 12 points. So TP2 break even, and I would have been break even up there anyways. I was only risking 10 on this as well. So 1 for 2 on Wednesday put me a little bit in the red, but that's okay. That's par trading. That's going to happen. Now moving on to Thursday, I took my first trade at 11. I did take a discretionary earlier. That was not part of the scalping model. So I'm not going to include that because that's just not part of the scalping model. I do want to focus on just AP's scalping model trades on this one. Still finished green on the day, but I was 2 for 2 on the scalping model. So we kind of just from the open just ranged and then displaced up. Now we did hit this -2, negative 2.5 here. There's actually, it did also hit the -4 standard deviation from a previous point we had marked out. Now, it definitely was a little bit rangy because you could expect some choppiness when it does hit that -2, -2.5, or even the -4 standard deviation. The only fair value gap that we had was this bullish fair value gap on the 1 minute right here. So there was 2 setups I took back to back Just gonna mark them out. So it was both on the 15 seconds. So first one was right here. Even though we have these equal highs, it did take this buy side over here, and like I said, we did hit a certain standard deviation point, so retracement is expected, especially when you have resting sell side down here. So we have this breaker structure on the 15 seconds. First candle would have put you in. Now, this one, I only risked 6 points and went for 6 points. Reason being is because choppiness was going to be expected. I just wanted a quick 6 points, get in and get out. Okay, so that's set up. And then as soon as this trade got closed out for green, there was one right after, right here, 15-second breaker structure. Would have tagged you in on the first candle, went for 6 points again. So both, I think, would have gone for 12. So for example, this one, this first trade went for 12 points break even. And this also went, this actually would have been TP1 break even. So ended up being definitely two good winners because I only went for those 6 points. This is exactly what I expected, considering we are bullish on the day, or at least as far as that range goes. But we did hit certain standard deviations that could end up in choppier conditions, especially the fact that there was not a 1 minute bearish fair value gap, and the closest fair value gap we did have was this 1 minute bullish that had not priced into. Eventually it did, but I didn't expect this 1 minute to get tapped in from here, especially the fact that it's against market structure. So as far as the scalping model, 2 for 2 on Thursday. Now moving on to Friday, I was 2 for 3 on Friday. We took all-time highs again. I feel like it's just been happening for these last 2 weeks. So when that happens, since we're not always at all-time highs, doesn't necessarily mean we're going to get a sharp pullback. And I already had instilled that, like, just because it hits all-time high, that doesn't necessarily, even though liquidity gets swept, doesn't mean we're just going to push back down automatically, okay? It's most likely going to range, chop, or just like it did on Friday, just push further and further as it did. So going off the first trade, we did hit, after taking all-time highs, we did hit a -4, -4.5 standard deviation zone. And we did set up this BPR over here. So we had this 1 minute bullish fair value gap got inversed, and then we had a 1 minute bearish setup. Now, I was a little quick to jump the gun, but in all honesty, it was not a bad setup. It could be deemed as an A+ because it did price off a BPR. So the inverse and the bearish fair value gap. We had a breaker structure right here. Okay, fair value gap. Actually, no equal highs either. And I got tagged in on the first candle, and this went straight up just to the stop. I was only going for the 6 and 6 again, but if you're risking 10 or 12, it would have stopped you out regardless. So I had that. And then as soon as I did get stopped out, let me just erase this first trade so it's a little bit clearer. And I figured with that first short, we had these equal lows over here. So I figured this sell side at the minimum was going to get tagged, but we can't always be right. And then as soon as that happened, I flipped over to a long. We had this 30-second setup right over here. I did not hesitate on this one because we practically closed back above that BPR over here on the 1 minute. So we had the breaker structure, fair value gap setup over here. I got tagged in on the second candle, and this actually ran for 12 points. Even if I was risking 6 points on this. I did take it off at 6, but this did go for TP2 break even. Actually, I think this did go for break even. And then as soon as we took that buy side, there was another trade right after, both on the 15 seconds and the 30. The 15 would not have tagged you in within 2 candles. Technically, it was a third. But when this buy side got swept again, I decided, there has to be some sort of retracement back. So we had this breaker structure right here. on the 30 seconds. Got filled in on the first candle, and this started creeping up, so I figured this would have turned into a this is going to stop me out, but I was risking 6 points. It went for 4 3/4, and this went back down straight to 12 right after that. But I did take 6 points on this only. Just based on the conditions and just reading the price. Like I said, I didn't expect a sharp retracement out of this. I expected a little bit of ranging, maybe taking out some sell side here and there, but I was surprised this even went for 12 points. And as you can see right after, just pushed back up again. So going off that, practically for the week, I was up 3R, which is definitely not bad. I know conditions have been, and I never like blaming the market. The market is always going to change pretty much faster than sometimes we can adapt to it. But just being able to stay patient. I saw a few people mention like the setups, the scalping setups not as common as they used to be, and not that it's not common, it's just the times that are being the setup is presenting itself have been later, if that makes sense. So before, you know, from 9:30 opening up until 11:30, you would get 5, 6, 7, you know, decently clean setups. But hitting all-time highs, you know, it's kind of an unknown territory. So the time that these setups are coming, what I've noticed is later. So right now, I'm pretty much waiting until like these last few days until 11 in the morning or even until PM. You know, I've never been a PM trader, but these last few weeks I've been sitting mostly on hands in the AM and waiting for PM to set up. So, you know, the main important thing you take off this is this works on your patience. You know, if you're taking all these setups mechanically, then I'm sure, you know, depending on your risk management, you could very well be in the red. But if you're adding that discretion, if you're using the 1 minute, if you're creating that logical sense of why you should take the trade or not take the trade, you know, I kind of just explained pretty much in every trade that I did take why I took it, why the logic was behind me taking that trade. Like, for example, that short, my logic was we have these equal lows right here. You know, we're in that -4, -4.5. Chances are, and it's always going to be chance, it's going to hit this sell side over here. Okay, so I wouldn't necessarily say that the setups have not been occurring as often. It's just the time zone that it's occurring. Like even pre-market, it's been setting up pretty well, actually. I didn't take any pre-market trades this week, but there's a couple instances where it did set up. So being able to adapt to those conditions is only going to make you a better trader. Okay, so if any questions, feel free to comment. Or, you know, we're, like I said, we're on Discord as well. We have my Twitter. Ask away. You know, AP and I are always open to questions. And other than that, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next week. Bye.